Hello and welcome to today's workshop on the Weidenfeld-Hoffman Trust Scholarships that are awarded to study at the University of Oxford. Very quickly, I will just introduce Project EduAccess and the panelists and then hand it over to the panelists to give you an overview of the scholarship, tell you a little bit about the eligibility criteria, what the timeline looks like, and what the application process is like, what is the selection criteria. They'll give you an overview of the statements and give you some tips on how you can write your scholarship statement and your answers to the questions that they ask on the portal, and give you some general tips on your application, and then we'll move to the Q&A. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, we are Project EduAccess. We know that access to higher education, leadership, and professional opportunities is a privilege that most people from marginalized communities are systematically denied. And so at Project EduAccess, we try to improve inclusivity in these spaces by removing some of the barriers. We run a mentorship program for learners from marginalized communities in South Asia. We engage in advocacy, and we run online and in-person capacity building workshops. And today's workshop is a part of our sort of attempt to improve inclusivity and make information accessible. We have three very wonderful panelists who've joined us to speak to you about the WHT scholarships, it's really amazing because Faizan was a mentee with us last year, and now he's here speaking to all of you as a WHT scholar. And I just found out that both Sagoon and Rohan had also watched our WHT scholarship recording last year and are now here. So it's actually so wonderful to have the three of them speak to you about their experience and the scholarship. Very quickly, Faizan is doing the BCL, which is the Master's Law at University of Oxford. Sagoon is doing an MSc in Comparative Social Policy. And Rohan is doing an MSc in Modern South Asian Studies. Again, just to sort of clarify it, the WHT is a scholarship to study at Oxford. So all three of them are at Oxford and received the scholarship to do their graduate studies this year. And once again, thank you so much to the three of you for joining us today. And I will hand it over to Sagoon. Who's that? Oh, Rohan. Sorry, Rohan, go for it.
That's all right. Thank you. And thank you for the wonderful introduction. The Weidenfeld-Hoffman Trust Scholarship is an opportunity to pursue a fully funded scholarship. It's a fully funded scholarship at Oxford, and it's combined with a comprehensive program of leadership development, long-term mentoring, and networking. It's for university graduates and professionals from developing and emerging economies. It's only for taught masters, so the MSc or the MST programs or the MPP, BCL programs, etc. But they're only for one-year programs, not for the research programs, which are the MPhil and the DPhil. It covers 100% of the course fees. It gives a living grant according to the UKRI rate, which usually increases every year. So it's 18,622 this year, and it offers a leadership program as well with various workshops. The eligibility criteria is there's along the lines of the courses, which you can easily access through the website. There's the countries, which also just take a look at. It's mostly from developing countries and developing economies. And there's no age limit for the scholarship, so you do not have to be, you can be any years old and you will be eligible. And you need to demonstrate a connection between a subject of study and your long-term career objectives, explaining how you see your professional work contributing to the improvement of public life in the country and at a wider international or regional level as well. These qualities are assessed during the selection process through the application and through the interview. You should be intending to return to your country of ordinary residence within 5 years of the course's completion. This is the list of eligible courses, which you can just access through the website as well. The application is now open. You have to apply by your course deadline, which can be, so in my case, for instance, it was, I think, the 19th of January. For some people, it's the 5th of January. So you apply by your course deadline and you attach it with the with your application itself. The deadlines vary according to courses. By March, you should receive your Oxford letter, and by April, you should receive an interview call, and you are contacted You have your interview in April usually, and you'll get your results by May. And you're expected to come to Oxford, I think 2 weeks prior to the beginning of the term, so in September.
Yeah, so the application process is integrated with your Oxford course application. So while you're filling your graduate studies application form on the Oxford website portal, that is where you are going to also fill the WHT scholarship application. And so there's a separate Weidenfeld-Hoffmann scholarship statement, which you need to fill, and we'll just cover this in a bit, and fill it, upload it along with the graduate application form on the Oxford website. And then after that, the process will be automatic. Now, you have to fill it along with the December or January deadline relevant to your courses. So make sure you check your course deadlines. If you're making multiple applications, then you'll have to, because every course application will be separate, then you'll have to fill in that number of WHT scholarship statements for each course that you're applying to. Next slide. Yeah, so the selection criteria is seen from your WHT scholarship statement, which looks at your motivation and your purpose. That is through how your course fulfills your long-term career goals and how you want to show your vision. We will also cover that in the questions that are assessed in the form, and you use by showing evidence in your commitment to affecting social, economic, political change at the level of your communities or back home in your country. Next slide. And then they're looking for leadership potential. So leadership skills, which can be demonstrated through a variety of ways, such as the things that you have done at your undergrad level, or if you have any work experience, things of showing teamwork, initiative taking, any kind of work that you have done to create change in a community or at a small local level. And then finally is academic excellence. That is not really a major thing that is assessed as part of the scholarship per se, but rather to do with the Oxford application itself. So once you get an Oxford offer, it's already presumed that, of course, you possess the academic excellence. Even through neither from the application nor from the interview, nothing is tested about your technical knowledge or technical expertise. Even at the interview stage, the questions are going to be from your scholarship statement and not to do with your subject matter knowledge. Next slide.
Yeah, so this is basically what the application will look like for you. You can find it on your application or download it off from the internet. Just Google it and you can download it as well. The application is very simple. It's very easy to fill up. It's some basic information about yourself, your previous degree, and some of your work experience. And then you'll see like there are 5 essay questions that you'll have to answer. So you just fill it up, all of these information into this one form, application form, and upload it to the same portal where you submit your Oxford application. Next, please. And so we'll now dive into the questions that you'll have to answer, the essay questions. So there are basically 5 major questions, 5 questions. And for each of the questions, there's a word limit of 200. So that's the max you can go. You can do less, but then do always remember you have to make, the maximum is 200 words for each of the questions. So we'll go into each of the questions now. Next, please. So the first one talks about why do you want to be a part of the WHT leadership program? So besides the scholarship, so there is a leadership component to it as well. So this question is basically asking you about why you are interested in the moral philosophy and enterprise challenge, as well as other communications and other components of the program that we have. So for this particular question, it's mostly about showing your interest and your knowledge about WHT leadership program. They just want to know how well you know the program already. And for this, you have to do proper research, which suggests that you go to the website, go through, LinkedIn posts, go through YouTube videos, any content that is available out there for you. And you can even reach out to the previous scholars, alumni, anybody that you can, and everybody will be happy to help you with your questions. And at the same time, you can also follow us on Instagram. So that is where the current scholars will keep updating about what's going on with the leadership program at the moment. If you go and look at our WHT stories right now, you will see about the business challenge session that we had yesterday. So make sure you're doing proper research and you know the program really well. And this is, for me at least, this is the question where I took the approach of introducing myself better. So, I started with talking about my personal values and connecting it to the leadership program. And I most specifically talked about the enterprise challenge and how I would be interested in that to come back home later and do something similar for the larger good. So, just be clear about the program and show which component you are the most interested in. Talk a bit about yourself as well. Talk about your passion and your future plans, and make sure you highlight your overall, educational professional background for this one. Next, please. So the second is, how can one individual make a difference? This has been my favorite question because this is where you can spend a lot of time. This will require a lot of time. And there's no one specific way or tactic to answering this question. Everybody's going to do it in a different way. And mostly there could be two major ways you could do it. Either you could talk about your experience, talk about, concrete life instances that you have had, or just talk about it in an abstract sense. So my friends would also add on to this. But for me, at least, I decided to write it through an abstract sense. So just to give you an example, I talked about, how all individuals, we have our own stories. We come up with our stories and how these stories matter to create larger narratives and change systems later on. So that's the approach I took. I didn't touch on my experiences at all. I just explained how I see this question and how I view myself as an individual and why I think I make a difference. So, it's up to you. You just need to spend some time for this question and think how you'd want to answer this. And if you decide to talk about your personal experiences, then do not be afraid at all to, highlight any experience that you have, no matter what you think of it. It might be small or big. Make sure you highlight what is the most closest to you, what you felt the most passionate about. Just talk about it and relate to why this particular mission or this cause that you worked for has been important to you. So you just need to have that conviction, and you need to show, how you're making meaningful contribution for the society at large. Next, please. Yeah.
So for this, have you ever mobilized a group to achieve a common goal, and how? Again, there are two ways of answering this. This can be more abstract, this can be more specific. And I think most of us answer it in the more specific, taking into account one particular example. And keep into account also the words that are being used in the question, and because that will help you frame your answer as well. You're asking about, they've asked you to answer about a common goal and the how, and both of these need to be at the center of your answer. And there's nothing which is too big or too small, right? I, for instance, spoke about my experience in the election commission of my university and how I tried to push ahead one very small piece of legislation, which I hope will be relevant for future generations, etc., as well. So, and while at the same time, Sagoon spoke about something which was a lot grander in a lot of her opinions. So I think that there's no one way of going about this. Nothing that you're going to say is going to be too small or too big, but speak of it with conviction. The strategy that I also took into account was to say that this was what I wanted to do. These are the kind of resistances I faced, and this is how I tried to overcome them along with my team members. So, because this is a very clear way for you to show what your vision and what your method of leadership is. And you can demonstrate that through this answer. And while the previous answer was about what it is more abstractly, here you can show them very explicitly that this is what it means to me, and this is how I have actually actualized it. Talk about the struggles, challenges they faced. Yeah, so I think that's been covered. Does anyone, Faizan or Sagoon, want to add to this?
No, that's fine. I think just the last part, the how part is also very important, that you're telling about what kind of approach that you use to bring change or contribute, and talking about not simply saying that I managed to do this, or just talking about its impact. That is also, of course, a very important part, like what impact you made, but trying to say that how you overcame those challenges. Was it through dialogue? Was it through mobilization? Was it through like negotiation? Was it about discussion, handling conflicting opinions? How do you engage with people you don't agree with, people who are not likely to listen to you, and so on? So it's also about trying to understand, and this is also part of like the philosophy of the program, uh, to like train you to engage with people.
Yeah. So what is the challenge facing a country that you want to help resolve? Now, this can be a countrywide challenge. This can be specific to your state, to your community. It can, so the challenge can itself be understood in different ways and in different scales as well, which you are free to define and explore. You could focus on addressing the needs of a particular community that you resonate with, and link them with your with uplifting them, addressing their struggles. You can contextualize this using data or evidence. You can do this in the context of particular policies. So, for instance, I spoke about education in India, and I spoke about the NEP and the way in which the NEP can, both ideologically and institutionally, it can exclude people who are already excluded from education. So, that, for instance, becomes a major problem for me. So, I spoke of it in the context of a very specific legislation in the present and in terms of historic inequalities. You can also talk about how you want to perhaps address this and how WHT will help you address this, which can be through, and that's a general tip that we have for all of you, which is that keep tying into what WHT is and the leadership program. So, for instance, here, I think Sagoon spoke about the business challenge. So, do you want to, yeah.
Yeah, so for this question specifically, I was talking about education, gender discrimination, and all that, which I'm really passionate about. Then I made sure, I brought in data to support my claim as well. And then the way I ended it was by connecting it to the the business challenge, and just sharing how that would benefit me to address the specific problem back home. So, make sure you are talking about your interests, your motivation, bringing in some evidence, but also connecting to WHT by the end.
Yeah.
So the final one is about your ideal career path over the next 5 to 10 years. So this is also to check how you aim to utilize the skills that you get in the leadership program, as well as your course in your future thing. So one is about talking about your professional goals, as well as like, it doesn't need to be necessarily just like related to your discipline, and make sure it shows some sort of idea that you don't need to have a big, like a well charted out plan what you want to do after your degree, but some basic idea that also shows flexibility, and that you're open to exploring certain options, and don't make it too specific that it appears that like you have already had everything sorted out, because they know that you're in a very young stage of your career. So like you can show that you want to explore, so that's also fine. Another thing is, you might want to try to link it to the earlier question on the challenge facing your country, so that it doesn't look like after it you're like that thing is not reflecting in your answer on how you want to go and change things back home, because the scholarship requires you to return to your country. So you may want to start with like, okay, what are your first short-term goals that you want to do upon your return, then in the next 5 years, and then finally a long-term goal. Don't be afraid to mention aspirations or goals that are like out of your reach or too big, that you want to work towards. You can rather show like this is a long-term big goal, and then how you're starting small and how you want to gradually build towards that. I think structuring this answer is important, because you can just segregate it, and it's it makes it much easier to answer it when you say that, okay, this is what I want to do upon my return immediately, then 5 years, then long term. Then link them with each other with previous answers. Look for the ways in which the course that you're applying, so how that course knowledge contributes, the networks contribute, the things the Oxford experience contributes, and finally how the things that you would have learned, you can again link it to the leadership program, the business challenge, the moral philosophy seminars, whatever things that you think speak to your profile. Utilize that to say that the scholarship is best place to equip you with the necessary tools that you want to go back home and say. And then also you might want to say things like which are the realistic, tangible changes that you can make upon your return. Next is some general tips. So as usual with all your applications, as you might be knowing, EduAccess will also be providing you with more support for the WHT and all of that. But for you to be able to get comments on your statements, make sure that you have those statements ready in time. You have to start early, you have to write them, proofread, edit, and all of these things are going to take time. And because the major challenge is all the answers have a 200 word limit, that is going to take a lot of time cutting down to the word limit, and it's not that easy. So make sure at first you have an elaborate statement and then you start cutting it down to match the word limit. So this process will take time, and so make sure you plan well in advance about it. Proofread it enough, make sure you finish a draft, take a break, send it to your peers, your friends, your professors, your mentors, whoever can give it a read through. Make sure you like proofread it, spelling errors, whatever you can. And most importantly, generally make sure that all of your answers somehow connect to the leadership program. And even while answering the question about what you know, try to answer it to the specific skills, specific values that resonate with you, rather than simply saying talking about your skills in the descriptive sense. Show that how those skills apply to your profile and like show your values. And finally, don't forget to convert the WHT scholarship statement into a PDF format, because this is something that is usually missed. It's given there in a fine print at the end of the statement, but when you fill the form on Word, make sure you convert it into the PDF before uploading. Yeah, now we can take questions.
Yes, thank you so much, Rohan, Sagoon, and Faizan, for such a comprehensive presentation and for really detailing out how they can make their application. If anyone has any questions, you can raise your hand and ask your question directly to the speakers, or you can put them in chat, either put it to everyone or send them as a DM to either one of the panelists or me. Siraj, do you want to start?
Yeah, hi. So, can you hear me clearly?
Yeah.
Yeah. So my question was to Faizan. Now, I was also trying to look at the BCL itself, and even I study currently at OB Jindal here in Sonipat, and I just wanted to ask, like, in terms of the apart from the WHT itself, the entry barrier that's for BCL, right? They've asked for a first class which is 6.5 and above on 8. So generally, apart from the HT, from the scholarship itself, what is the realistic barrier that Oxford has beyond the 6.5? Like, what is in terms of grades that they're asking for, which somebody should keep in mind before they start applying for scholarship offer Oxford itself?
So the grade requirement is not a WST requirement. The grade requirement is more to do with your course. And you will see that even the grade requirements within Oxford vary from program to program. For the BCL, it's a first class undergrad degree, and you'll have to convert it. Also, when you fill the application on the Oxford portal, that itself gives you various formats to fill your grades. So there'll be a CGPA format, a percentage format, and like uh, if you contact your university exam office, they will also tell you how to convert the CGPA into percentage and whatever things that they require. But don't worry about the grades, just apply. And like, I don't think there's any barrier per se, unless, of course, and also it's not really only just grade based. You might also want to show, so for example, they measure it relatively, that where do you stand in your class. So they know that universities across the world don't have like the same grading pattern. Some universities mark fairly and like more leniently, some may mark more rigidly. So my sense is that their metric is not really your marks or CGPA in the absolute sense, but you're standing in class in your cohort in a relative sense. So that are you in the top 20% of your batch, top 30%, top 10% of your batch, and so on. Like BCL, yes, like realistically speaking, is itself one of the most competitive courses here. But that is to do with the, like it varies every year depending on the pool of applicants. But just apply, like that's no reason for you to be concerned or within your control either.
Perfect. Kushal, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, sure. Thank you guys for the amazing presentation. My first question is very generic about coming back to India. So I was reading about this one scholarship in which the applicants are supposed to come back to India or their countries immediately after the course or your master's is over. Now I know that here you mentioned about 5 years that you have to come back, but if you could like explain or elaborate more on that part. So first question is about that.
Rohan, Sagoon, you want to go?
I think that it's not per se a problem. The scholarship I think you're referring to is Commonwealth Evening, like the UK government ones. But here it's recommended that you go back in 5 years. They would want to see you go back in 5 years, and even after the first year. But it's not stipulated as such.
Okay, okay. The second question again is very generic, but so now I'm working at the World Bank Group, and the scholarship part wants me to talk about my dreams or like what contribution I have made or something or the other that aligns with the leadership program. Now, my work has been very generic towards the development goals. And do you guys think it can affect? Because what I have personally observed is that usually those who have worked on smaller projects or on tier 2 based projects, local projects, they have had the possibility of getting the scholarship. So is this work experience of mine, because I really worked hard to get into the bank, and is this going to affect my scholarship acceptability somewhere? Anyone again?
Faizan, you want to answer?
Go ahead, Sagoon.
No,
I'll add if you miss anything.
No, I'm just thinking about people in our cohort right now who have worked for,
Yeah.
big industries and bigger organizations. And it's not that we don't have them. People have worked for, bigger, like we have people from engineering background, energy, who have directly come from corporate world as where their experience is mostly with like Ford maybe, or Tesla, or, they've worked for energy companies back in Russia. So it's not a problem actually, don't doubt yourself just because you've worked for on larger scales and larger project. Rather talk more about your own personal ethics, your values, and how you connect that to your work. Don't be afraid if it's not grassroots level. It's definitely, I mean, there could be much more that you could talk about if you come from a more local experience, but then that should not be stopping you at the same time, because our cohort is very diverse. The pool tends to be very diverse. The selection will be diverse, so you will definitely be considered. That do not be scared because of that.
Sure. These two questions only. Thank you, guys. Thank you once again.
Ikra?
Yes, thank you so much for this session. I just wanted to ask that I'm a final year student. I have not completed my degree yet. I'll be completing it and I'll be getting my completed finished degree next year. So, am I eligible to apply in this cycle? Because the website says the otherwise, like they've written that if you have not completed, you can't, like, if you do not have your undergrad degree yet, you cannot apply. But I've heard varying things from like people already like who've gotten it. So like could you just enlighten me
Yeah,
on
I
that?
think no, what they mean is that you should have completed your degree before you join Oxford, right? That's what it means it's more to do with like the course eligibility. Like all of us, like me, Rohan, at least, and someone like I just graduated this year. So when I was applying, I did not have my like like my results or my transcripts and my final, like I had applied when I was in my final year. While applying again, in your Oxford application portal, you can just specify your grades till the latest semester. Even on the WHT scholarship statement, where they ask you about your degree, write the grades till whatever semester you have.
Okay, thank you so much.
Perfect. JKOP, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, all right. Thank you very much. So I'm Joshua Ope, and I would like to know about, so I was told that there is nomination for the WHT. So first you probably get an offer and then you get nomination. I just want some kind of insight into how that really works. Is it that like, does getting an offer automatically get you nominated for the WHT, or then you'd have to get like maybe your school nominating you? I want this insight also because I got an offer on the MPP last year, and when I discussed with my school, it was more of like, well, WHT has to decide on whether they want to give me or not. So I didn't know really about how the nomination works. So I'd like to know more about that.
So it's unfortunately very unclear the way that this works. For most internal scholarships, that's the problem. That so technically the school, the program is supposed to first nominate you based on your standing among your cohort, and then they send it to the scholarship committee, and then the scholarship committee looks at, let's say, 10 applications and say, okay, we just want 7 of them, and then they say they interview 7 of them and they say, okay, we just want 5 of them, right? So for WHT, for Clarendon, for Ertigan, for most of these internal scholarships, for college-based scholarships, DAC, all of these, that is very much the sort of problem. So you don't know what goes on at the stage of nomination, what the basis of the nomination is, but you just know when you are nominated. And yeah, unfortunately, that is very much a problem of the system at both Oxford and Cambridge, as far as I know. Even with something with other scholarships like Felix, for instance.
Yeah, so if I'm allowed to ask like maybe a follow-up, so you mentioned maybe you're standing in your particular cohort. I really want to know how that standing works. Is it more on academic or more of like a general assessment? And if it's a general assessment, what are the kind of critical factors? I think from my experience, I also had a conversation with BSG. They had mentioned that they had nominated me for one, but I just wasn't sure of which one it was. But I would just like to know what exactly the details would be when it comes to standing amongst the cohorts.
So again, from what I've understood, it's very vague. They have this assessment criteria and they mark you. So I think that for my program, for instance, it's marked out of 30. And if you have more than a particular amount of, let's say you have more than 28, then they'll consider you for being nominated for particular scholarships. But at the same time, for some of them, they might want to read your application, and they might also read your application at the same time and say, okay, this person is more eligible for this scholarship and not for this other scholarship. So, but I think the primary one is going to be the 30 marks that they give to each student, and then they see, okay, this is 20, this is 20, and this is 27. Does that help?
Yeah, I'll also clarify that all of this is also like specific to what your department does. For example, for me in the BCL, it was not really a college because by that time I had not been allocated a college. Rather, it was my department which nominated me. So sometimes it's usually just your department that sees which applications you're eligible for and then nominates you. But because you would have filled the WST scholarship form, all of those applications are considered and then sent to the WST. And then out of those scholarships, out of those applications, WST shortlists certain candidates or a number of people for the interview stage.
Okay, great. Barine, I saw a raised hand. Do you not have your question?
Yeah, I wanted to ask about the number like of scholarships available, like how many people do they give out these scholarships to? But towards the end, somebody said like answered it somehow. So that's it.
Okay.
Should we answer the questions in the chat, maybe?
Yeah.
I'm
Yes,
answering
I know
them.
that. Yeah, I know that Rohan has been answering them, but just for the benefit of everybody who watches the recording later on, it might be sort of good to just give an overview of it. So, Rohan, if you just want to.
Yeah, so one person asked, can people apply if they have a master's degree already? Yes, there are people in our cohort who already hold a master's. Someone asks, is the interview based on essay questions? Is it very technical? It's based on essay questions and it's based on WHT criteria. It's not technical for the most part. For most of us, it was not. Then someone has asked, okay, is it wise to apply well before 19 January, the scholarship deadline, or to use as much time as possible and submit the application after January begins? So I said that to be considered for scholarships, you would have to you would have to apply by the scholarship deadline. And then they said, yes, of course. I'm sorry if the question wasn't clear.
Yeah, I think the question asks how much to wait. So there's no advantage that you get if you submit before. All the applications are considered together. So take your time, but of course, you don't want to be submitting your application on the very last day and the last hour, because the Oxford server also sometimes glitches in the last day and it's very traffic heavy. So like 1 or 2 days before the 19 January deadline is a safe place to go. But make sure that you at least finish your WST scholarship statement as soon as you can, so that you get time to edit, review, get feedback on it. So it's going to take time in revising and your first draft, second draft, and so on.
Yeah, I mean, the benefit could be that you could hear about your decision from your department soon if you apply early, but then for the scholarship, it's just going to be the same general for everybody.
Yeah, and sorry, just to chip in, I don't think you get even an offer. You'll only get earlier than the normal timeline if you request for it. If, say, for example, you're applying for other scholarships like Chevening or Commonwealth, where you need an offer letter early on, so you can apply then early on and sort of request for an early decision. But otherwise, I think you'd get a decision in the same timeline as everyone else. Okay, Michelle, do you want to ask your question?
Hi, yeah. So my question is regarding so the course that I'm applying to, if I'm applying to other scholarships also, the first question is like, does that like if when they see that you have also applied to other scholarships and there is a chance that you may be getting other scholarships, then does that impact your acceptance to WHT? That's one. And the second question, I don't know if you already answered this before, but is can you apply for the scholarship for only one particular course, or can you, if you're applying to say more than one program at Oxford, so is the scholarship mapped to one program, or can it be like, if you're, can you put your preference for like two programs, etc.?
Okay, so if you I think it will get clear to you when you open the Oxford application portal website. When you open the website, every application is like separate. Like you start an application, a new application for every course, and then in that is where you upload your documents. So if you're applying to two courses, you'll have to upload the WHT scholarship statement in each of those application forms for your course. So that's about like how to apply. Your question about mentioning applying to other scholarships, I mean, you can't really lie about it. Like it's a question about not whether you're planning to apply, but all the scholarships that you have already applied for. So it's also to gauge, like, which other universities you might be considering. And like, I didn't lie, I had only done other scholarships. So just say which scholarships you're applying. And I really don't know how much. I don't think it's going to affect your application per se. It's just to get an idea, or sometimes just prioritize you, like, to ensure that you get funding.
All right, thanks. So you mentioned that you can you're applying separately for each program and then you cannot, but is there a limit for, like, I mean, suppose I'm applying for 2 or 3 programs and I'll have the option to apply for the WHT for all 2 or 3, or is there a limit?
No, the limit is not tied to the scholarship. The limit is tied to your Oxford portal. And
Right.
Ms. Bai, if you could clarify if there are any limits currently from next cycle.
I actually don't think so, because you're paying an application fee for each of the courses. But I think at some point, if they remove the application fees, then there might be a limit. But as of this application cycle, I don't think there's a limit to the number of courses that you apply for, as long as, I mean, then you have to pay for each of the courses, and that might get really expensive. But I think that's the only sort of deterrent to making multiple applications to Oxford.
So someone has asked,
yeah,
do you change your essays for each course, or can you use the same WST statement for all? I think it would be prudent to write a separate WST statement for every course you're applying to, because you want to link it to the course that you're applying to. And like that applies, I mean, for all scholarships, right? Like you write it in tune with the program that you're applying to. So you'd want to draft a separate one. But of course, like if your scholarship statement is very broad that you think sufficiently answers, then yeah, feel free to go ahead with that. Then someone has asked, both the application to the university and scholarship should be submitted together. Yes. Like if you look, that's the first, if you please go just check the website, see the slides. The application and the scholarship statement are to be submitted together. Download the scholarship statement from the Oxford website. The link is also provided in the slides that will be sent to you. It's also there on the WST website and the Oxford website. Download the scholarship statement form, and then you will upload it in your Oxford application portal, like your course application portal, and submit it there. Does WST go through the essay and SOP you submitted for your courses too? Is that something that comes up in the interview? My understanding is that like the whole application pack is forwarded to the WST. So that means your course documents, that is your grades, your essay, your SOP, your writing sample maybe, or your CV will definitely be forwarded to them by your department. And I mean, it didn't really come up in my interview as such. But it was only about the WST scholarship statement. That's what the interview focused on. Also, when you go to the WST, someone has shared the link. When you go to the WST Trust website, you click on scholarships, then there's a check eligibility option. And if you scroll down, it says how to apply and eligible courses and countries. So if you click on eligible courses and countries, you'll be able to see the eligible courses. Then it will also direct you to the Oxford University page about the Weidenfeld-Hoffmann Scholarship and Leadership Program. So make sure you check out both of these pages, both the Oxford page as well as the WST website itself.
Perfect. I think all questions in chat have been answered, and I don't think there's any raised hands. But if there's any final questions, because we are coming to the end of the session now. Okay, there's a question. Sazina is asking about other internal scholarships. So it depends. For some you have to, but some you, like for example, some of them you don't have to attach anything. Again, when you see the Oxford portal, you'll see all of the scholarships that you can apply for and what are the requirements. So for some you will just be automatically considered without adding any additional documents, while for some you may have to provide additional documents, like for the WHT, and there are a few more scholarships. And then for some, they might get back to you, say that you've been shortlisted, and they might ask for additional documents. So I'd say, again, see the Oxford portal and see what are the scholarships and they provide all of the information there. Can you share any sources that can help us with the application fee for the fee waiver? I can quickly take this one as well, because this is a concern a lot of people have raised with us. So unfortunately at Oxford, it's very hard to get a fee waiver. And you can, of course, write to the university. You can let them know your specific conditions and the reason that you're requesting for the application fee waiver. But I mean, don't know exactly what are the circumstances or cases in which they do give an application fee waiver to international students. So yeah, but there are a lot of other universities in the UK that don't have an application fee as well. So I'd suggest, when you are thinking of making a short list of universities and courses, maybe you can do a balance of applying to universities that don't have an application fee, and then applying to universities that have an application fee, or also not applying to them at all. I know that there are a lot of our mentees who sort of have applied to universities without any application fee, and sort of got an offer and also got scholarships. So again, really depends on what you want to study and where. And some people can also just apply for one course at one university and nowhere else, and see how that turns out. So yeah, I guess it is really subject on your circumstances, but it is fairly difficult to get an application fee waiver at Oxford. But I think I've heard that the US universities are better in this situation. They do give application fee waivers in a lot of cases. So if you write to them, they do consider your special circumstances. Okay, any final questions? We have a few minutes. Otherwise, yes, maybe Faizan. Oh, Kushal, yes.
Just one question about the timeline part. So if, let's say, I apply for the application by December end, and I get the offer letter, but what would be the timeline part for the scholarship particularly? Because we have to then consider the loan as well. So if someone could explain, like, do they reply, or do they provide the scholarship along with the offer letter, or like it follows a separate timeline, something like that?
No, you don't need to provide the offer letter. Like, they will contact you
Their
themselves.
offer letter, the offer letter that Oxford gives, but the scholarship timeline I'm talking about. Do they like work
Okay.
on the same pace?
Okay, so the scholarships, all this, at least for the WST, the scholarship decisions won't happen before April last week or May, because April is when all the interviews happen at the same time, regardless of you getting your offer earlier before, because they wait till all their prospective applicants get offers and then like have them all at once in April. And then your scholarship letter, like once you get a decision by April, let's say April last week, usually I'm assuming you want that source of proof for funding, for applying for a loan or something, right? Your scholarship letter officially.
Yes.
Yes. So that once you get the email, like usually the scholarship letter comes within 2-3 weeks, but you can email them saying that you need to apply urgently, and then they can also fast track that process for you.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Yeah, once you get that decision, then they will support you individually in all ways, like even like helping you understand how to apply to a visa, how to manage your documentation, loans, everything. They will like help you with that, and also fast track some of those processes for you.
Okay, that makes it more easier actually. Thank you.
Perfect. Faizan, Rohan, and Sagoon, very quickly, if you just want to sort of give any final tips on those who are applying for the WHT.
When in doubt, just apply. None of us really expected it, honestly. Like, from all our personal experiences, we really didn't expect it. If you think, don't be in a doubt whether the scholarship is meant for you or not, just apply. To be very honest, like, I was one person who thought I don't have work experience, I have not done enough, and I checked. Don't rely also on just going to the WST website and seeing, oh, these people who are there, and you look at their bios and you think, oh, these are very fancy people. well, most of those bios are written once we come here and like are sometimes very, of course, hyperbolic. We are very humble people within the cohort, nothing so grand. But please apply. Don't feel intimidated or whatever, but just apply if you're in doubt.
I will say that you have to feel grand about yourself. Come on.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
to talk about yourself. You have to say why you belong here. You have to reflect on your values. The process is a lot about reflecting on yourself, and they will see that, they'll see through you, right through you when you are able to do that. I spoke a lot about what values I carry in life. Why does it match to WHT? Why do I belong to this community? And I knew I belong here. So you have to have that conviction within yourself and be able to display that through your application. And even in the interview, I think someone just asked about the interview, didn't talk much, but just to talk shortly about it, it's about 20, 30 minutes long maximum. And they just go through a bit about your, through your application, something that you might have written on your application that they found interesting. They'll ask you about, WHT, what are you interested the most about in WHT? And there might be a few specific more questions, but it will be very short and precise. So, it's all about showing your true self. So yeah, please do that and good luck with it. And they'll go through all your application. I think they go through your SOPs as well. And when I read back my applications, I felt there were so many similar components in my SOP and my WHT application. So, so many things that I talked about were leadership, my values, my goals in life, and how WHT would be the place where I belong and how it could help me further my goals in life. So yeah, good luck with all of that. And you can always reach out to us if you have any questions.
Please do reach out to alumni, not just the three of us, but the WST cohort is a very tightly knit and like a smaller cohort that is very proactive in helping people in promoting the WST program. So don't hesitate. Reach out to people in LinkedIn. Someone mentioned about World Bank. One of our alumni was working at, I think his name is Sarthak Agarwal, yeah, Sarthak Agarwal from India. Reach out to him. He worked at World Bank and was awarded the WST here. And there's so many other alumni from India as well, and you can just go to the website and look up their names from India and like also connect with them on LinkedIn. Follow the WST page. If you have any other further doubts, you can DM the WST Trust page itself, because that the Instagram page is managed by the scholars themselves, so you can also reach out to them and like get more perspectives.
Yeah, my only tip is, I think they've summarized it quite well, is two things. One, have a clear line across the entire application. So for me, it was education. From the first answer to the last, I kept coming back to education and how I'd like to improve it in different facets, etc., etc. And the second is that keep linking it back to the leadership program, because that's the core of WHT. WHT is just like any other scholarship except this part, which makes it different from all the scholarships. So they want you to know about the scholarship when you're applying to it. They don't want you to, randomly be saying abstract stuff. They want you to very explicitly be relating it to the leadership program, which you can only do once you've done your research about the program itself. So do that. Yeah, and apply.
Great. Very quickly, I have put some links in chat. One is the link for the scholarship website. So you'll find all information about the scholarship there. There's another link that discusses eligibility for the scholarship. So you can have a look at what the website says. Then we've, as I said, we did a workshop on the WHT scholarships last year as well. So you can have a look at the recording and the PPT there. On that link, and I've also linked our YouTube channel, which is where we will upload the recording of this session and also all of the public workshop that we've been doing for this application route. So since for 2024, you'll find them on our YouTube channel. That's about it. Thank you so much, Rohan, Faizan, and Sagoon, for joining us today and taking the time out to speak to everybody about the WHT scholarships. I'm sure it helped a lot of students and will help everybody who sort of looks at the recording of the session. Thank you for taking time out, and hope you have a nice rest of your Sunday. And thank you everyone who joined us today. See you at our public sessions next weekend. sorry, we are likely to do a session tomorrow on master's applications in Australia, and we'll put the details of that soon. But yes, see you everyone, and have a nice day. Bye everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.